Yo YouTube, it's your bro Yo Elliott here, back with another video for you from my car. Spent a little bit more time traveling this morning, so I figure I'd spit with you for a bit here, sitting in the cockpit of my car. And the very first thing I want to do is congratulate all of the action takers who have signed up, registered, and are going to be joining us in Chicago for the very first Yo Elliott live event in about 5 years. And those of you who don't know what I'm talking about, all the information you need to know to join us is down below. Looking forward to linking up with you guys at that men's forum for us to grow stronger together. Now, this video is in response to one of the comments that I received in that last video that I put up this week. And the gentleman that writes the question really asserts that I'm not doing my job as a man by not attacking one of the most critical issues that are facing men, and that is genital mutilation, male genital mutilation. Don't act like you don't know what I'm talking about. It's called circumcision in the West here, and apparently this is a practice that's most prevalent in America. It's only superseded by Israel. So this is not a worldwide practice, although it is an ancient practice, and one that I pull into question here today. And I want my friend who put that comment in my video to know, yo, I'm with you. 100% cocks for men out there. No more 90% cutting off a piece of our sons' dicks any longer. Let me share a little bit of my experience with this conversation about one of the most disempowering practices that keeps men small, which is male genital mutilation. Yes, that's what it is when you cut off a piece of a boy's dick before he even gets a chance to make a choice about that. So the very first thing I would do is point out the hypocrisy between those who rally and fight for female genital mutilation, which is something that I've seen many programs on TV about. Many people were big gun-ho characters about stopping this thing happening in Africa, but no one's really mentioned in a mainstream format and platform what's happening to men here in the United States. You know, I say the United States because from a little bit of the research I've done, this practice has slowly been declining throughout the rest of the world. The U.S. still seems to be pretty high on that rank of cutting off our sons' dicks. So, of course, my father's from Belize, and in Belize, you know, he grew up wild. He'll tell me that, and he'll tell you that. He grew up basically wild with very little supervision. He was raised by the jungle. And one of the things that jungle people don't do, at least in Belize and my father's experience and many of the people that I know from Central and South America, they don't mutilate their sons' penises. They don't cut off parts of their sons' dicks. And when my father came to America, you know, my parents, both being from Belize, came here with hopes and dreams for their children. And when they say, like, when you're in Rome, do like the Romans do, right? When in Rome, do like the Romans. My parents picked up a lot of and subscribed to and subjected us to a lot of the American ideals, and I hold no animosity towards them for that, because like I said in a previous video, I am so grateful for my parents to have made the sacrifice, particularly my grandfather, to make the sacrifice he made in order for us to be Americans. And I am proud to be an American. But in the same way, you know, my parents came here and they decided, let's do what Americans do. We've got 3 sons, let's chop off the tips of their dicks, like most Americans do. And you know, of course, as a kid, I don't think anything of it. You know, my dick probably looked like every other kid's dick in the classroom. But the very first time I recognized that there was a contrast between my dick and my dad's dick was when I was taking a shower with him. I may have been about like 4 or 5 years old. And, you know, it's not like we were taking showers regularly, but one day it was like, hey, son, you know, we were in a rush. Come hop in the shower with me. I took a shower with my dad, and besides the fact that, you know, my 5-year-old mind and height at this, I'm standing at like the height of his dick, was just like overwhelmed at the size of my dad's member. If you know what I mean. And at the same time, I also recognized that there was something very different about my dad's dick. It didn't look like my dick. And I thought nothing of it, but I know that that memory stuck in my mind for many, many years. You know, I couldn't put my finger on it until later on I discovered, you know, because when we mutilate our sons' penises, their genitalia, they don't know what's going on, and we don't tell them what's going on until many years later when they find out, oh, this thing called circumcision happens, and you look at your dick and you realize it's scarred. You know, those of us looking at our mushroom tips, if we look right around the bottom of the head, that's scarring. That's not a normal part of the penis. What should be there is an extra 1/10, or, you know, depending on the size of your package, up to maybe 1/4 of the skin that was there, that God put there, that is normal and natural. It's a hood. It's a protection for the gland of your penis head. So it wasn't until much later that I realized that, you know, I have much less of a cock than my dad has. And when I had a son, when my son was born, there was no way I was going to let somebody take a scalpel to my son's dick before he has an opportunity to decide whether or not he wants to keep or get rid of and throw in the trash can some part of his dick. Now that I'm an adult and I'm working with many young men, I've been working with many young men for many, many, many years, and it is really my calling here to empower men in this new age. I can't help but think that a large part of our disempowerment as men has to do with the fact that we're walking around with partial cocks. Think about the trauma associated to a young baby, a child, when they're most malleable. The physical, psychological, emotional. You think babies don't have emotions, but they fucking cry. The emotional trauma. Everybody's all tender-hearted about people with post-traumatic stress syndrome. Every young boy who has a piece of his dick cut off is walking around with post-traumatic stress syndrome associated with their manhood being diminished. I talk this way because I'm a passionate dude and I get fired up. And this is a subject that deserves to be fired up about. So, when we are out here trying to figure out different ways of thinking as men, more empowered ways of being as men, you know, strategies and rationale for how we can pick up our swords again as men, I can't help but think that we're battling against a deep traumatic scar to our manhood by having a piece of our dicks cut off. Your manhood has been damaged from the get-go. So no matter what we try to do, think, say, or be as men, we will always be coming back to the shame that's associated with the victimhood of having a piece of your dick cut off. I say it that way because that's what it is. I don't care how sacred you hold it to you, your culture, your religion, or your ideology. It is a bullshit man-made construct designed to control us. And if you look at the history of circumcision, control has a lot to do with it. It makes no sense to me, you know. I like to think of myself as someone who hopes to live and subscribe to the most natural way possible of being, while I sit here in my electric car in traffic over a fucking bridge in Tampa Bay. I get it. We live in civilization and that mankind has ascended through our technology. But when we still participate in barbaric practices that go uncriticized, unfocused on, you know, really, when you Go to the heart, go to your intuition, go to your instinct, go to what's basic inside a human being. You can't look at circumcision as a good thing. You could come up with all the statistics and studies and shit that's purely rational that you want, but you just try to compensate for the lack of head down there with the head up here. You got to put this shit down and just consider you're cutting off a piece of your dick. What, did God fuck up? Did God make a mistake? Did God say, hey, I'm going to put this extra piece on your dick you don't need so that someone can cut it off when you get born? Consider. Use your common sense. So there will be no dick mutilation in my family, in my house, and I will not subscribe to it. You do what you want with your dick and your son's dick, and if you want to cut off a piece of your manhood, go right ahead. I'm just expressing myself here today and maybe opening up a conversation with y'all, a critical look at what is truly one of the most, if not the most, disempowering act that society perpetrates upon men.